You know how they say slavery is in the Bible and that slavery was okay. How do you guys argue against that?
All right, let's see it.
Second greatest miracle of the Old Testament was what? The Exodus. God is delivering the Hebrew slaves from slavery in Egypt.
This is not a condemnation of the practice of slavery in any way, shape, or form whatsoever. This is just saying we don't like it when we are enslaved.
Well, but there was slavery that was recorded in the Bible. Yes, that's right. There's slavery that's recorded. There's polygamy that's recorded. There's that's recorded. There's that's recorded. Never is the Bible saying these are good.
So here we get a bit of a rhetorical twofer, as this creator links slavery with polygamy and then tries to associate them both with murder and rape, suggesting that, hey, these are four moral evils that we pretty widely agree on today, and just because they're being represented in the Bible does not necessarily mean they are being endorsed in the Bible. There are some problems with this, however. Murder is pretty unilaterally condemned in the Bible. However, the boundaries of what constituted murder anciently would differ from what constitutes murder today. Rape is not really treated that directly. There's a concept of the violation of a woman sexually. However, the crime is not really a crime against the woman herself. It is more of a property crime against her husband or potential future husband. And so the punishment can range from the death penalty if she's married down to, well, now you've got to marry her yourself since you've rendered her tainted goods and she is ineligible for a standard Israelite marriage. And so it wasn't so much a crime against her as against someone who might try to purchase her in the future as a bride. Now, polygamy is absolutely nowhere condemned in the Bible at all, and in at least one passage in 2 Samuel 12:8, it's treated as something facilitated by God. It says that God gave David his many wives. So to the degree one believes that anything that comes from God cannot be a moral evil, then at least that passage in the Bible is endorsing polygamy, and there's not any passage anywhere that directly condemns it. Slavery is also not condemned in any single syllable of the Bible and is explicitly endorsed. In Leviticus 25, verses 44 through 46, we have God ostensibly explaining to the Israelites that their native Israelites and their offspring are supposed to be debt slaves or servants, and they're supposed to get their chattel slavery from the nations around them. They're supposed to purchase them from the children and the families of the foreigners who are living among them, and they will be their property forever, and they can be handed down from generation to generation. But you're not supposed to treat native Israelites this way. And so that is an explicit endorsement of chattel slavery. And again, there's not a single syllable of the Bible that treats the practice of slavery itself as a moral evil.
Rather, the Bible is helping people living in a corrupt, depraved culture learn how to deal with it.
So here we have the classic apologetic ploy of arguing that God is just dealing with the cards they were dealt, socially and historically and culturally, and so is just trying to help their people without altering the course of history, without engaging in any supernatural meddling. Even though in many other stories in the Bible, God is doing precisely that because they expect their people to transcend social and historical contingency. And so the apologist will appeal to whatever is most helpful to their rhetorical goals. When they need to appeal to God's transcendence over social and historical contingency, they will. When it's helpful for them to insist that God does not violate that contingency, they will say precisely that. And for a wonderful new discussion of precisely this, I would highly recommend Jill Hicks Keaton, good book, How Evangelicals Save the Bible to Save Themselves.
Exodus chapter 21, verse 16. It says very clearly, if you kidnap someone and are caught with them in your possession or having gotten rid of them and sold them, you must be put to death.
This is not a condemnation or a prohibition of the practice of slavery itself in any way, shape, or form whatsoever. Every ancient society that had law codes that carefully regulated slavery and explained who could be a slave and who couldn't also had laws saying you can't kidnap native citizens. And if you look at Deuteronomy's counterpart to Exodus's law here, it more explicitly explains that this is about native Israelites and not just anybody. But additionally, slavery is not contingent upon kidnapping. The Bible's explicit endorsement of slavery in Leviticus 25, verses 44 through 46, states that you can buy your slaves from the nations around you and from the children and the families of the foreigners who are living among you. So, prohibiting the kidnapping of native Israelites in no way, shape, or form functions as a prohibition or a condemnation of the practice of slavery itself.
When you get to the New Testament, you're in the Roman Empire, and over 50% of the people in the Roman Empire were slaves. Doctors were slaves, lawyers were slaves, business people were slaves. It was like indentured servants.
Indentured servitude is servitude in order to pay off a loan or a debt or a contract or something like that. And so there was a period at which the person paid it off and would be released. And that was not the circumstance for the overwhelming majority of the slaves in the Roman Empire.
Were some of those slaves mistreated? Tragically, yes. A lot of those slaves, though, were treated very respectfully.
And a lot of enslaved peoples in 18th and 19th century America were treated respectfully. That does not make slavery any less a moral evil.
Now, when Paul says, slaves, obey your masters, what he's doing is he's not saying that slavery's good.
He's also not saying slavery's bad or that we should or are supposed to get rid of it, which means his perspective is a socially and a historically contingent one.
But he is saying Christians do not follow Spartacus and cause a slave rebellion in the Roman Empire, because that's really going to mess things up. Instead, respect your masters, but understand that freedom is best.
Right, but always operating within the bounds that the practice of slavery has set.
How do you conclude that? Because Paul wrote a whole letter. It's at the back of the New Testament called the letter of Philemon. The whole point of the letter is, Philemon, you have a slave who ran away. I met him in prison. I led him to Jesus. I'm sending him back to you. But I ask you to accept him back no longer as a slave, but as a brother in Christ.
So this is not a judgment against or a condemnation of the practice of slavery in any way, shape, or form whatsoever. This is Paul very deferentially and respectfully acting within the frameworks of the practice of slavery to very subtly request that Philemon consider manumitting this slave of whom Paul has grown fond.
And when you study the abolition of slavery around the world, usually it is motivated by followers of Christ, like William Wilberforce in the British Empire, like Frederick Douglass here in the United States, who understood biblically all human beings are created in the image of God, therefore to enslave someone is absolutely evil. And they fought against slavery for the abolition of slavery, and they succeeded. Why? Because Jesus Christ and the Bible teach that no man, no woman is inferior to anybody else. Why? Because God created all of us in his image.
So against the fact that there's not a plausible case to make that any syllable of the Bible actually was intended to condemn the practice of slavery itself, this creator wants to make the argument that the Bible is an agent for the abolition of slavery. But it is not. It cannot be. It has no agency. It has no inherent meaning. We do not extract pristine and unadulterated meaning from the Bible. We create meaning with the Bible. Now, this particular meaning has been created with the Bible for many years. In fact, as far as I know, the earliest sustained critique against the practice of slavery itself comes from Gregory of Nyssa from the late 4th century CE, who used the Bible as well as Greek philosophical frameworks to argue that the practice of slavery itself was evil. So it's happening very soon after the formalization of the Bible. It is not in the Bible, but someone wielded the Bible as a tool to produce this concept, because the Bible is a tool. And what is governing is not the Bible, but whoever is wielding it as a tool. But soon after that, the Bible would be wielded by others to authorize and validate the enslavement of others. Now, what allowed the abolitionist movement to gain a lot more purchase in the 18th, 19th, and 20th century? That would be the tools of Enlightenment rationality that developed, which allowed people who are wielding the Bible as a tool to point it in this specific direction and to facilitate the ultimate abolition of slavery, along with the participation of a lot of enslaved peoples who did not need the Bible to know that slavery was bad. It took Christians almost 2,000 years to arrive at a consensus regarding the fact that slavery was evil. Didn't take them nearly as long to decide that how other people have sex with each other was evil, but it took them almost 2,000 years to decide that enslaving other people was evil.